Welcome to the Pelican Pod, a podcast showcasing our talented authors and illustrators and the books they create. We'll be exploring the moments in history that have inspired our books and the culture that makes them unique. This is Antoinette de Alteriis, PR and Marketing Director, and your host for this series.
Everybody's gonna go to the CAJUN Christmas parade.
On today's episode, we'll discuss one of Pelican's all-time best-selling books, CAJUN Night Before Christmas. Then Kat Pigott stops by to talk with us about her new book, The Flying Horses of City Park. Every year at Celebration in the Oaks, they feature a really interesting little bit of lights. They're over on the side near the area of the garden shed, and they stagger through the story as you hear a recording of Tommy Joe Breaux telling the CAJUN Night Before Christmas in a fantastic dialect. Now, I'm not going to try and do the dialect because I'm going to massacre it, but I am going to tell you a little bit about how the CAJUN Night Before Christmas came to be a part of Louisiana holiday traditions. It was first published about 46 years ago, and a new generation is discovering the charm of Gaston the green-nosed alligator. That's right, Papa Noel has alligators and not reindeer. First conceived as a Clio Award-winning sales jingle based on the Clement Moore poem, the illustrations of then-fledgling artist James Rice brought the story to life. The story that we heard was that he arrived on a motorcycle at the door of Pelican Publishing, and publisher Milburn Calhoun said, "If you can do an alligator, draw me some sketches and I might be able to give you some work." And he went home and he did. And that alligator became Gaston. Gaston's been on the oil well. Gaston's been all over the country. Gaston's even joined the circus. And that Gaston became part of the history that is commemorated at Celebration in the Oaks. Radio personality and voice talent Tommy Joe Breaux became the voice behind the recordings at City Park and on the audio version of The Adventures of Gaston. The book also created what has become the largest segment at Pelican Publishing, the children's book division. With the passing of publisher Dr. Milburn Calhoun and his wife Nancy Calhoun, illustrator James Rice, and the loss of Colleen Sally, the people behind the creation of the story are mostly gone. Now, with the torch passing to Arcadia Press and the History Press, what remains a long legacy of delight is still part of our history here in New Orleans. Each year at the Celebration in the Oaks light show featuring the classic cabin from the story, yes, there is a miniature cabin out there. You can't sit in the rocking chair anymore, but it's still there. Dedicated staff from Pelican Publishing go every year and collect the memories of attendees as they flow through the premiere preview parties. Fortunately for us, we have fabulous interns who we drag along to the parties to capture images of Gaston cavorting with guests, hiding in the poinsettia tree, and breakdancing with the band. From now-grown children who remember it as the first Louisiana tale they ever heard, to young parents who laugh about a non-Louisiana spouse reading it to their children in full-blown Cajun accent, the book is universally loved and remembered. Teachers talk about how they use it in the classroom, business people mention that they send it to out-of-state clients, and children laugh as they try to mimic the dialect that has all but disappeared from everyday life. The classic tale has been interpreted in gingerbread houses in competitions as far away as California and in cakes at the Edible Book Competition at NOMA here in New Orleans. For years, the miniature book ornaments have appeared on Christmas trees across the country as a reminder of a faraway Louisiana home. Even the New York Times, yep, those guys up north, praised the lilt, the humor, and the rough-hewn drawings of the Cajun tale. At Pelican Publishing, a huge portrait of Gaston and his bearded friend hung in the boardroom for years, watching over each new author and illustrator who joined the family. CAJUN Night Before Christmas inspired a full series of Night Before Christmas stories, including the extremely popular Texas Night Before Christmas. That's actually the first Pelican book I ever purchased long before I moved to Louisiana. And the newest edition that came out in 2017, The Artist Night Before Christmas. It's our hope that by reintroducing this charming Louisiana tale, that Louisianans will be reminded of the rich legacy of storytelling within our state and the far reach that a humble, or maybe not so humble, gator has had on the entire country. The book is available in a hardcover collector's edition as well as a regular hardcover. It's in a coloring book and a small ornament book. You can even purchase Christmas cards that have pictures from the book. Originally, the book was colored every other page. So the original copy of the book, published in the early 70s, only had every other page colored. The other illustrations were in black and white. And funny enough, James Rice was colorblind. So the illustrator for this classic, as well as many other Pelican books, was colorblind. So he would lay out his pencils, because he used colored pencils, in order of the color spectrum so that he would figure out where the colors were to use. And we frequently had to say to him, "Hey, James, stop using that yellow. We've seen too much of it." But I hope that you will pick up a copy for your own family and start your own tradition reading these aloud. And if you'd like to share some of your memories of the book and your holiday celebrations on our Facebook page, please do so. We will be giving away 4 packs of family tickets to Celebration in the Oaks, as well as the NOLA Christmas Fest at the Convention Center during the holiday season this year. Whether you already have a well-loved copy or are about to purchase your first copy on Amazon, sit back and enjoy this recording of Tommy Joe Breaux reading this Cajun classic heard at Celebration in the Oaks every year.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house there don't a thing pass, not even a mouse. The children be nestled good snug on the floor, and Mama passed the pepper through the crack on the door. Then Mama in the fireplace done roast up the ham, stir up the gumbo, and make bake the yam. Then out on the bayou they got such a clatter, make sound like a burro done fall off his ladder. I run like a rabbit to got to the door, trip over the dog, and fall on the floor. As I look out the door in the light of the moon, I think, man, you crazy, or done got old too soon. 'Cause there on the bayou, when I stretch my neck stiff, there's 8 alligator a-pulling a skiff. And a little fat drover with a long pulling stick, I know right away got to be old Saint Nick. More faster and faster the gator they came, he whistled and hollered and called them by name. Ha Gaston, ha Thibault, ha Pierre and Alcé, Jean Nanette, G Suzette, Celeste and Renee. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, make crawl, alligator, and be sure you don't fall. Like Taint Flo's cat, through the treetop he fly, when them big old hound dog come a run himself by. Like that of the porch, them all get a climb, with the skiff full of toy and St. Nicholas behind. Then on top the porch roof, it sound like the hail, when all them big gator done sot down their tail. Then down the chimney I yell with a bam, and St. Nicholas fall and sit on the yam. "Sacré," he exclaimed, "my pant got a hole. I done sot myself on them red-hot coal." He got on his foot and jumped like a cat out to the floor where he land with a splat. He was dressed in muskrat from his head to his foot, and his clothes is all dirty with ashes and soot. A sack full of plaything he throw on his back. He looked like a burglar, and that's for a fact. His eyes how they shine, his dimple how merry. Maybe he been drink the wine from blackberry. His cheek was like rose, his nose like a cherry. On second thought maybe, he lap up the sherry. With snow-white chin whisker and quivering belly, he shook when he laughed like them strawberry jelly. But a wink in his eye and a shook o' his head make my confidence that I don't got to be scared. He don't do no talking, gone straight to his work, put plaything in sock, and then turn with a jerk. He put both his hand there on top of his head, cast a eye on that chimney, and then he done said, "With all of that fire and them burning hot flame, me I ain't going back by that way that I came." So he run out the door and climbed to the roof. He ain't no fool him to made one more goof. He jump in his skiff and crack his big whip. The gator moved down and Don made one slip. And I hear him shout loud as a splashing he go, "Merry Christmas to all, till I saw you some more."
As we mentioned, Cajun Night Before Christmas has become, among other things, a staple of the New Orleans City Park celebration in the Oaks. Another signature feature of the park is the carousel, which has provided laughter and excitement to children and adults for over a century. Pelican author Kat Pigott has a new children's book out, The Flying Horses of City Park. This book captures those memorable experiences on the carousel. We recently sat down with Pigott to discuss the book and what inspired her to write it. Here's our conversation. Today, our guest is Kat Pigott, and Kat is the author of 3 books with Pelican Publishing. Her newest features a visit to the carousel in City Park. The book, The Flying Horses of City Park, is illustrated by artist Tammy Curtis, whose paintings of the famed horses were featured in the fundraising efforts to restore this historic cultural landmark. Kat, welcome to our first podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've been recognized by the Louisiana governor for your community service. You're a talented baker. We love it when you bring your cookies in. And now you're a successful writer with 3 children's books. Tell us what brought you to writing children's books and this book in particular.
I had been hired to work in the south of France for a writers group, preparing the meals for them and their writers conference. And I had not really ever entertained the thought of being a children's writer, but I was in the kitchen cooking, and I could hear the writers talking about their manuscripts, how much they loved the writing, and I went back home and I thought, maybe I'd like to try my hand at this. So I actually sat down at my dining room table in 2007, and I started thinking about what I'd like to write about. And I had a memory from my childhood about my father making green dinosaur pancakes for me and my sister. And I thought, wow, I think I'll write about this and have the pancakes come alive, have the breakfast come alive, and there'll be dinosaurs everywhere in the kitchen. So then for my second book, I wrote the sequel to Green Dinosaur Pancakes, which is I See You, Green Dinosaur. And this book was about bullying, and I wrote it because, unfortunately, Louisiana ranks number 1 in bullying across the United States. The Flying Horses of City Park is a very important book to me, as I decided to write this book because there weren't any books that I could find about the carousel for children.
That's really surprising that there weren't any books out yet.
Right, that's correct. I looked high and low and couldn't find any. And then I also had a childhood memory, or a memory of my family, that prompted me to write the book. My family has always handed down family heirlooms, and so some of those heirlooms had monetary value attached to them, and some of them were just special things that we had, like grandmother's silver, my Nana's brooch, some of her recipes, my father's jewelry. There were all kinds of things that we would pass down in our family. So then I started thinking about the carousel and how that was very familiar to me, and how that seemed to be a tradition that was passed down to generations and generations in New Orleans. And so I thought, well, I'm going to write about this story. I was just fascinated how a woman could go and possibly be proposed to on this carousel, and then years later take her own children or her grandchildren there and share that story with that child and that memory.
That's a really interesting feature of the books, too. In both your first 2 books and in this book, you have this multi-generational connection where in the first 2 books, the young grandson is just getting really imaginative and the grandmother is sort of encouraging him to feel these things. And in the book here with the flying horses, the granddaughter is going, and you can see that in the artistry too, where they're a very loving connection, but the grandmother is encouraging her to explore and see more. So that multi-generational aspect of your book seems really important. Is this something that you purposely decided to do, or did it just come through the writing process?
No, it was something that I purposely decided to do. I had a very close relationship with my Nana, and I spent quite a bit of time with her. And she was an artist, and she was like one of the most interesting people I had ever met. She encouraged me in every area of my life, and she was a very special person to me. So she introduced many things to me, and I just had this great love for her. So when I started writing, I just felt compelled to put a Nana in each one of my books, which really was my Nana.
It comes through in the storyline. There's a real deep connection between them. This new book takes us in the visit to City Park to ride on the carousel, and your author's note gives quite a bit of the history behind how the carousel came to New Orleans in 1906, and then how it got to the City Park being part of a donation and purchase from the historic Pontchartrain Beach location. Tell us about how you got this information. How did you go about getting this research together?
Well, I started with several different areas of research. I did not depend on just the internet because there's always a lot of conflicting information on the internet. So I started out, of course, I looked at the internet and gathered what I could. I spoke with several people. I spoke with the public relations director, Amanda Fritz, at City Park, and she was able to provide me with some information, such as some of the names of the animals, Cammy the camel, Leo the lion, and Jeffrey the giraffe, which she said, I don't think anyone knows the names of these animals, so I'm going to tell them to you and you can put them in your book. So I was very excited about that, so I could share that with the children. And then also, I spoke with someone at the historic registry there. I spoke with them about the carousel. And I read several different books and articles and magazines about the carousel in general.
That was pretty fascinating to learn the animals' names. I've ridden that carousel hundreds of times and never knew. And I never saw any plaque anywhere with those names on it. So this is the first time I had known that. And, you know, the carousel at City Park is on the National Historic Registry, too.
Right.
So we're really lucky to have that preserved as a piece of history. So the illustrator for this book, Tammy Curtis, was involved in that fundraising campaign with her painting. So how did you connect with her to become the illustrator for this book?
Well, while I was searching the internet for information about the book, what I would put in the book, I ran across an article about Tammy where she had painted the horses, the famed horses of the carousel, and she had sold each one for a large sum and donated 50% of the proceeds to City Park for restoration of the carousel. And I thought, well, you know, there's no one else that is more suited to draw these illustrations than Tammy Curtis. So I called her on the telephone and I said, look, I'm writing a book about the carousel in City Park, and I'd like to come down to your business there on Magazine Street and talk with you about my project. And so we made an appointment. I went down there and spoke with her, and I said, look, you know, these are my other books, and would you be interested in doing this project with me? And so she said yes, and then we made a little visit over to Pelican Publishing and sat down and talked with them about the book and the illustrations, and they approved her as an illustrator, and so she began illustrating the book.
It was exciting to see him come in because she brought in the originals, and then we had to scan them on site. Our art director, Kevin Johnson, scanned them for us. But to see the original drawings as we were working through this process was pretty amazing.
Yes.
We were kind of sad when they went away.
Right.
She came and took them back.
That's
like,
right.
Can't we keep them?
Right.
They definitely are a character in the book. I mean, these angles for the horses are pretty original.
Yes.
And the dynamic illustrations really make the story move. What was your favorite part in the process of working through the connection with the illustrations and the text?
Well, I loved the illustrations as far as, like you said, the angles of the illustrations, and there's one particular one where the child Ava is looking upward as she's riding on the flying horse, and it just gives you the feeling that you are on that flying horse and going up and down and up and down. So I thought that was just an interesting thing
Yeah, it is a very dynamic way to show the carousel and that movement. So you were at City Park for the opening of Celebration in the Oaks for the family party day. Tell us about that experience, because you had the book there for the premiere.
Right. And we were selling the book there across from the carousel. And so I decided that I would take the book and go inside where the carousel was housed, and that I would show everyone the book and tell them that we are selling the book if they'd like to come over and purchase one. And I opened the book, and I happened to open it to the illustration where the children were waiting in line, holding their parents' hands, waiting to ride. And then I looked up, and I saw it was the exact same scene as the illustration. And it just really moved me almost to tears, because I thought, this is fabulous. I could see that the tradition of being passed down through the generations was just really important, not only to the children of Louisiana and New Orleans, but to just everyone involved there. So.
I think that must have been pretty exciting.
It was.
To see
it. It really
well, now
was.
the carousel is open as part of Celebration in the Oaks for the holiday season, and then it's, of course, open at City Park in Storyville for most of the year. They do close it down partially to clean it and refurbish each year, but it's open right now. You can purchase the book at bookstores in the area. You can go online right now to amzn.to and order it too. You can also check out our event schedules listed on our Facebook page, Pelican Publishing, and see where Kat's going to be next. Because I think you're at Barnes & Noble in the next couple weeks. You've got a couple more events.
On the December the 14th, I'll be at Barnes & Noble's in Mandeville. And then on the 15th, which is a Sunday, I'll be in Metairie at Barnes & Noble's there.
Excellent. I might come out and see you in Metairie. Are you bringing cookies to those?
No.
Oh,
No.
So, what would you like your readers to take away from this book as one last piece for them to remember?
I think really the tradition of the carousel, and how it's so amazing that it's passed down from generation to generation and able to be shared by everyone. I just think it's just wonderful.
Absolutely. And if you think about it, it's 113 years now that this carousel's been in New Orleans. Right. That's a lot of families and several generations.
Yes.
So what new projects are you working on that you might want to tease us with?
Well, I'm working on a rhyming story right now about Louisiana legend. So we'll see where that goes. I've already written it and I've already turned it in. So we'll see how that goes. And trying to Mason Sibley, who illustrated my first two books, is working with me on some illustrations for that.
Yeah, we love Mason's illustrations in the first two, and he was quite young when he started with you, so it's been exciting to see that growth too.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Kat.
Thank you for having me.
The Pelican Pod is brought to you by Pelican Publishing, an imprint of Arcadia Publishing.
Recorded and produced by James May.